Hi Kenra, Low Wheeler here, and look at what we're creating today. This is a beautiful halo highlight technique, and we were able to create this beautiful champagne blonde tone in her hair. So to get that done today, we're going to keep it simple with some balayage tips for you and some more inspo. Let's dive in. This is our sectioning for Cherie, and I have basically two lines of thinking here. When you see a client that has this amazing, rich, long hair, we can get really lost in the sauce and create infinity amount of micro sectioning, but I like to keep it simple. So the back quadrant of her hair is wrapped up. The nape is now on a diagonal section in front of her shoulder. And we're going to start our application like this from the back occipital to over the front diagonal, right above the temple is where we're going to start on each side. We can see on her unsectioned side over here that she has a lot of layers to connect, but really what I'm going to be concerned with is bridging the underneath section to the shorter layer. So we're going to start here for these reasons. I'm mixing up blue powder lightener to lift her into this really beautiful champagne, warm and buttery tone. Okay, so to run through this look, we're using Kenra Blue Powder Lightener plus 30, and that should help us lift through. I can spot that she has a little bit of permanent hair color in here, but I'm not afraid of it. We just know that it's going to probably reveal a little bit more warmth in her finish, but if we formulate based on color principles, it shouldn't be an issue. So I'm going to start behind the ear and build a little tip out. Moving forward towards this section, we're going to bring the tip out at a nice high point close to her cheekbone. I'm going to make it a point to stay out of her root area because that's not the focal point of the design. But to move through in an efficient way, we're going to want to build as much color from this section to this section so we can build towards her face to really get this look and to do it minimally and effectively. She has super fine hair and it's feeling like it wants to get staticky, so for me, I'm just going to wet down my gloves and pat the static just out of her hair. This really won't affect anything either way. We know that lightener will stop working when it's dry. So if you have to wet down the hair a little bit to just cut static, it's totally worth it in my mind because you just want to make sure that you can get in and work with the hair and not be limited because there's static flying everywhere. So I'm standing just over her shoulder. I'm being really intentional about that because it's going to help me to just have as much tension as I can laying down the lightener onto such long hair. It's really important to get the tension right because if you have a lack of tension, then that's where you run into the lightener bleeding into sections that you don't want it to. And a huge fear that most people have with painting is, presenting bleed marks into the design. So that's where your tension plays a really important role. Now moving into this section, I'm gonna comb through it and make sure all the little flyaways, I'm able to hold them down. And then I'm gonna feather this lightener a little bit higher. Another important thing that you want to make sure that you do is get a heavy saturation of the lightener onto the section. If you can see the ribbons of hair through, it's probably not enough lightener. So something I really stand by is my lift that I'm able to accomplish, and a big part of that lift is by making sure that as you bring the lightener onto the section, you're not also wiping it away. So that means laying it down and then reloading your brush and applying more lightener versus taking some lightener and then stretching it through the length. This makes such a massive difference in your final result. And now that we've gotten this far, we're going to subsection out the left side of her hair, and we're gonna do the same thing. Sometimes I like to use the end of my rat tail comb just to clean up sections when they're long. I like to kind of poke through them a little bit, position my hair. If there's anything that's like not blending in with the section naturally, I'll kind of dry it out a little bit. But most importantly, when you're first starting to balayage, you just want to trust yourself. Don't overthink it. If you see something that you don't like, just dry it out and move forward. Because she has long hair, I immediately jump to upgrading my brush size, just because it's the size of the brush kind of dictates the amount of product you're able to lay on in one swoop. So with long hair, if possible, I grab the largest brush that I can get my hands on to make that fluid and impactful. And the opposite's true if you're doing like a really small detail in the hair. You don't need the massive brush to make that happen. Small details, small brush, long hair, big surfaces, big brush. At the very ends of the hair, you don't want to wipe off any lightener. So sometimes I'll position the hair and then get a little more lightener towards the tips. Now that we're working up higher towards the temple and the hairline, I'm gonna take now a little bit of a different section approach. So she has a lot of hair, and sometimes our clients are very dense right on the crown. So I'm just going to take this top bit of hair on each side and I'm just gonna put it away. Now I'm left with her bang fringe layers and then her interior depth. So now I'm gonna subsection this out and start to blend in just a little bit into the interior depth section. We're gonna keep this section lower. We don't really need to get into a high point in the inside of the hair because you just won't see it. So that's what's gonna lead me to just incorporating the tips together and keeping this placement in here in the inside a little lower. Now moving into this front whole panel, I'm probably gonna bring it up quite a bit more because I want it to make sense and really be fluid with her shorter fringe. So if I grab this section with tension, including her fringe, I could get a high point here, build the lightener into the mid shaft, and then kind of where there could be two sections, I'm gonna make that into one. So I'm feathering my initial lightener, and then I'm just gonna bring it across. I'm gonna feather it to just get a little bit of softness in that transition. Now I'm coming in and building the weight of the lightener. And then I'm gonna layer in more lightener to kind of, lack of a better word, I'm gluing these bangs into the section with the lightener. And all these layers now are one connected section. So I'm gonna take my rat tail comb and now I'm just gonna even soften this a little bit more. So when this section breaks apart, it's gonna be very, very soft, transitional. So we're gonna just keep that theme going on the other side of the head. So we've completed both sides and they're beautiful sisters, not twins. That's the beautiful part of balayage. It's supposed to look natural, not so matchy-matchy, and like the sun did it. So now we're left with these two little pie sections of her crown, and I'm going to take these sections and I'm gonna lay a very bold panel. And I'm gonna feather that into the root too. And what we're going to see is a veil of color. And this has been something I've been really enjoying, and you just have to try it. Like, just matter of fact, you have to try this. I know it's like kind of a little bit different and might be a little scary because, you know, without the experience of seeing the end result time and time again, it will, you know, look like, okay, we're making a blob on the hair. But you have to just trust the process, because when you see how easily we're able to bridge our shadow root and comb through into a root melt, this is just gonna make a very sparkly baby light transition. So I really want you to lean into this and think about how you can integrate this part of the technique into your everyday, because it is such a game changer. And then we're just going to saturate just a little bit through the ends here, and then we'll do the other side. So here's what we're left with, is just this big juicy chunk of hair, right? We love it. And so my goal in life is to always keep this as simple as I can, because this is where it gets tricky with your time management and your pricing ability. Okay, so looking at the back of her hair, I am subsectioning off the majority of it. Her nape is already in front of her, it's connected. So all I have to do right now is to make sure that this is either a part of the design, meaning it's intentional depth, or I can connect it by tipping it out. Because I don't want her to have a heavy ombre, I think this, from a design standpoint, could be left as a low light. That means I'm gonna move forward closer to the middle of her crown section. And there's so much more where that came from. So I'm just gonna put aside the very top veil. I wanna see a couple things. I wanna see depth in the corner, so this stays light, depth in the corner, so the other side stays light. So now what I'm really looking at is just this. And we're going to do a wall of color, and then we're going to move to the crown. Now that I've plugged that piece in, I'm gonna come in, and I think from a design, I'm gonna do a very little tip out on these corner sections. Okay, so now I'm left with this nice final section at the top, and we can do one big bold sheet. I'm kind of motivated to get a little bit more saturation through the ends because it starts to layer slightly. So I'm gonna just take this in 2 sections. And then it can have almost a little hollowness in there, which is okay. I just really want to encourage you to try this, because it is so powerful. It's gonna unlock a whole different side of the brain. I feel like the foil side of our brain is more technical and is just more of a motor skill type of technique. As soon as you start painting, it is so artistic. Very little things that I would say are rules when it comes to painting. And that's just like very much so based on what you're trying to get out of it. So my rules for painting is like, how am I gonna do it in a way that is minimal and gets a lot of lift? But if you're just doing a lot of diffused brunettes and like lift isn't your primary focus, because you wanna do like caramel blending, like you can break these rules, right? Or you can use different lighteners and get great quality results. So I just love the artistic aspect of this. And I'm just frosting this section like it's a little cupcake, because that's how I'm gonna get my best lift here. Going through, cleaning it up and feathering it. It's just so fun. To me, when I'm balayaging, it never feels like work. Literally never. Look at this raw lift. She was one of those magical unicorns that lifted so pure and clean, even though she had permanent color at the base. So here's our plan. We're going to do a little bit of a shadow with 5 NUA to just keep us cool and blended, and then the rest is gonna be 9 PV. Because we balayaged off of the scalp, it's really not like a high stakes situation to get in there. So I'm just gonna kind of tap in at her root area. There's not much shadowing to happen as far as the balayage placement goes, but I'm gonna do a nice little overlap onto the sides where we did those nice panels, just to like cover my basis and transition her into a more lived-in look, and through the back. So everything's pretty much gonna fall over her shoulder, but that back crown, I'm gonna hit that first just to make sure I'm layering that blend. And then I'm gonna just cut right into her front. And then I'm just gonna bring this through with a little comb. Hold out this section, feather in the 5, and I can see where I'm blending in the high point. And then I'm gonna do that again on the other side. Don't be afraid to spot treat as you tone out balayage. I always get asked if I tone out all my balayage or if I just leave some of them raw. I definitely tone everybody, and it's just kind of looking for those opportunities to customize, soften, and blend. And come in right where her shadow root would be in the very front. Now we're gonna take our 9 PV and just layer right through the entirety of her hair. We're gonna watch this develop for about 10 minutes and then we'll rinse her in style. Here's our beautiful end result. I am so stoked. Are we obsessed? Because I am obsessed. So let's do a little recap here. For this halo technique, we kept it really simple with a subsectioning going from her temple to behind her occipital bone, bringing it all forward and painting it with our blue lightener plus 30 volume. And then we mimicked that on both sides, working up towards her fringe. And as we moved through the hair, we mixed French batches for pure lift. And to tone out, it was really simple, and that's because we stayed off the roots. So when you do that, it is very simple for the shadow root. Recapping our shadow root, it's a 5 NUA, and we did an all over global glaze of 9 PV. This gave us that champagne effect and helped us to balance and neutralize the gold without eliminating it, which is so beautiful with our coloring. And here is our end result. This was so much fun creating this together with you. I really feel so passionate about you taking these techniques and going out on a limb and trying them in your salon. If you love this tutorial, please like and subscribe to the Kenra YouTube page. Okay, bye.